Welcome, everybody, to Radicalized Truth Survives, where week after week we have your back. We are on episode 50, and we are so grateful that you all have stuck with us all these months as we bring investigative news from the trenches of disinformation. What could be a better way to spend our 50th episode than with our favorite war correspondent, Zarina Zabrisky, bringing us the news from Ukraine, from Moldova, from Kherson, and she'll show some people in Odessa dancing in the dark as well. It's going to be amazing. Hi, gentlemen.
Hey,
Hi.
how's it going?
Just in case you guys are just tuning in, these two also enjoy going down rabbit holes of disinformation, spelunking in the deepest depth of the dark webbiness. And this is Jim Stewartson. Hi, Fidelity. Stoked to see you guys. Episode 50. That's quite a milestone. You know,
yeah, it's been almost exactly a year.
Incredible.
Despite all the efforts to shut us up.
Yeah.
Neener, platformed yet.
We're still here, bitches.
Well, also, I was watching the first episode with Dave Troy on crypto, and I was thinking we were just such a nice young group of kids back in episode number 1.
Back in the olden days.
This war has been something else, but it's been great.
1 full year ago.
I don't remember ever being nice or young. So
no, but I got to tell you, you have proven that you can seriously up your game, because remember, Jim, we used to always be like, we can't house train Hi-Fi. Like, he's not house. And then one day, Hi-Fi put on a suit, never stopped. And here he is making us look good week after week. And we are super happy that you're here with us. Very nice. Very nice. All right, guys. Very nice. Let's jump into Front Loaded.
Front Loaded.
I used an old Ice-T line that he said from a Hollywood party that I threw in the 90s. I compared Trump announcing for a third time to day old McDonald's. And that was in a podcast for Byline Times pod. And it makes me laugh every time I think about it. Ice-T was using it as a reference to a Guns N' Roses reunion. He's like, yeah, it's like day old McDonald's. And I was thinking, how could I best tell UK listeners what it was like with Trump announcing a third time? And that was the line I came up with. Quite proud of it. What do you guys think?
I don't know, because I've eaten day old McDonald's. And Donald Trump is a lot worse than that. It was only a cheeseburger, and it had been in the refrigerator. And
stop.
Yeah. But nuggets are never better the second day. Never. Just toss the nuggets, people.
Jim.
I got nothing. I got nothing for this one. It's a rarity in the annals of our 50 episodes, but I really got nothing about the day old McDonald's or Hi-Fi's horrendous eating habits.
Well, I will say that my point was that I don't even think Fox wanted to cover it. You know, they're already thrown in on DeSantis, and there was not the enthusiasm. Allegedly.
Well, I mean, also Elmo has taken the center stage.
Yeah, correct.
So
we are going to be talking about that.
We'll talk about Elmo.
We're going to be talking about that.
For further notice, I will not say the name Elon Musk again this episode. I will only call him by his rightful name, Elmo.
Okay. Well, in case you didn't notice, I'm not the only one who sees Elmo as a national security threat. Even with the strange days at Twitter, that seemed to get a lot of traction, and we are going to continue reporting on this. Correct, gentlemen?
I have a trivia question.
Yeah.
How long have I been saying Elon Musk is a fucking problem?
For a year.
All the time.
For a year. Steadily.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I was writing a thread about Elon Musk when I got fratted off on Twitter. So, you know.
Fratted. I love it. Yeah, well, you seem to be doing okay over at Mastodon, so that's cool. What
I
is
love Mastodon. Everybody should go to Mastodon. It's way better than Twitter in terms of the way it's set up. It's a little bit dorky. It takes a little bit of you just got to sign up for some shit and that's it. And
Yeah.
it's great. I love
I'm
it.
finally there. I'm finally there at Toad Social, at Heidi Cuda at Toad Social. Where are you, Jim? Where can they find you? Just your first and last name, or
Jim's at Jim Stewartson at mastodon.online.
okay, great. And hi-fi?
At hi-fi at toad.social.
Okay, at Heidi Cuda at Toad.social. Okay, great. So I have been asking about historical precedents for authoritarians buying media outlets to kill them, and I have answers. And this is very exciting because Byline Times is going to be launching a new supplement, and I will be among the editors of that. And I am going to be writing about just this. When I put this question out, I got some answers, and it's going to be very interesting to see the historical precedents. And while we're on that, gentlemen, I do want to say that I have been listening to Jason Stanley, our guest from a few episodes, How Fascism Works, the audiobook version. And it is so imperative. Every sixth grader should be tested on that. They should all read it and all have to do reports on it, because I think it would be much easier for them not to be duped as they get older. But what's critically important is that what we are replaying right now, we keep going back to Weimar Germany, and that's true. But look a little closer and go to Hungary and Turkey. Everything that Orban and Erdogan are doing is exactly what we're doing here, and literally, like note for note, the party formerly known as GOP literally is just copying exactly what they're doing, but with education, with human rights abuses, all happening in Turkey and Hungary. And that may not surprise you guys, but the way Jason lays it out, it's like, OMG, it's so overt.
Yeah, I mean, all of it is authoritarian capture. It's all, it's fascism. It's exactly what everybody is following. Hitler, who had his own antecedents, right?
Yeah, right.
But yeah, there's nothing hidden about it anymore.
Oh.
It's all right there.
Wild.
And the problem is there's this lag between what's really happening, which is clearly fascist authoritarian takeover, and the ability of the world to recognize it and not normalize it. Right. We're in this period where we're still talking about the Republican Party as if it's a political party.
Right.
We've got CNN who moved all the way to the center, which means that on one side is, dictatorship and the other side is democracy. And we're going to both sides that. Right?
That's not how it works. It's not how it works, man.
Well, it is how it works for a while until the whole thing, crashes one way or the other. Right. Because it can't sit on this point forever. Right. And that's the part that unfortunately we're at. We're all playing this giant game of trying to push the world one way or the other.
I'm happy to note that we're going to give Nancy Pelosi the last word on this episode, so just stick around for that. One more thing from Front Loaded. I was doing a little bit of research on Special Counsel Jack Smith, and I discovered his wife, Katie Shavigny, is a producer and filmmaker, and her film, Dark Money, is amazing, and I recommend it. She focuses on Citizens United as a threat to national security, talking about we don't know where the money's coming from. We don't know if it's coming from foreign nationals, and she focuses on what happened in Montana. This movie is important. It's dope. I started watching it last night as soon as I found it, and I'm going to report back to you guys. But this is a very important movie, and I'm very excited to know that those two are, a couple, because I think, right?
I would just like to point out one thing here, and this is the really only important thing. See that right there, Cleveland International Film Festival official selection. We choose quality, so obviously.
But seriously, Heidi, that's a really good find, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so I went through the whole cycle of grief with Jack Smith. Like, Jesus fucking Christ, really? You're going to have Mueller 2.0?
I'm excited about this guy. Yeah, I'm excited about this dude.
Yeah. I mean, because Garland is scared of his own shadow. And so maybe it's the right thing to hand it over to somebody with some balls. And by the way, the guy, you know where he was? At the fucking Hague.
Yes.
Prosecuting war crimes in Kosovo.
Yes.
So homeboy knows all about Russian imperialism and aggression. And is not in any way afraid of going up against international war criminals.
Yeah, and apparently his wife knows a little bit about the network of dark money. So
yes,
what?
those are good signs, but for fuck's sake, I am not going to get into it's Smith time or whatever the hell it's going to be.
I did give him a little
time. Now it's Jack time. I don't know what the fuck it would be.
I did give him a little bit of a hubba because for this old investigative reporter, and then immediately I was like, oh, I better find out about his wife. And I always remember you got to check out The Women. That's just one of the films that she's produced. She's dope. So pretty excited that
all the fascists got mad at Jack for wearing his weird outfit.
It's his
he's at the Hague.
Yes,
you ignorant.
She's a prosecutor at the Hague. That's what
Facts don't matter.
However, I do have a criticism of Mr. Smith, and this is only meant to be constructive. I would like to offer him a wooden comb.
Yes,
a little bit of oil.
Stop.
I knew it. He's too busy.
I knew it was coming.
I know he's
prosecuting war criminals.
All right, that's it for front loaded, gentlemen. I'd say that was a pretty damn cool front loaded. Let's go to word phrase of the week, yo.
Word phrase of the week this week is incitement.
Ooh.
And incitement is an important word.
Yes, it is.
I've been trying to explain to people, stochastic terrorism and spread the whiteboard about stochastic terrorism, but really, I don't think it really captures what is going on, and that is incitement. I mean, if we look at what just happened in Colorado, this is literally the Pulse nightclub repeated. And the incitement by those on the right, if you remember, Putin, this is one of his main incitements in Russia to unite people against the LGBTQ plus community.
Right.
It's all over Eastern Europe. Wherever the fascists are taking hold, the same rhetoric exists. That's not a coincidence, people. It's a tactic, and it is incitement. And here's another thing I need to bring up is, we were just talking about the Hague. At the Hague, they actually recognize that there is incitement to genocide, right? If you look at the trials that happened between, in the Rwandan genocide between the Hutus and the Tutsis, right? There was incitement charges brought against propagandists there. If you look in former Yugoslavia, who was Zezelj, I forget, SESLJ. He was actually indicted for war crimes because of using war propaganda. I don't know if this is like a numbers thing, if just not enough gay people have been murdered in this country for it to be considered genocidal incitement. But really, if we're going to wait for the numbers to get that high, what are we even doing? So that's why incitement is the word phrase of the week this week.
This is hi-fi. For me, this is you at your best, because I just know the passion that you feel when incidences like this come up and we see that we're not doing anything about it. And those of us who have gay children, family members, it's really fucking painful to see this happening in America and nothing being done.
I mean, it's more than nothing not being done. I'm going to talk in Hellscape about Colorado Springs. who did Elmo let on his platform? 3 transphobes. Big, very, very dangerous, harmful, misogynistic, transphobic, neo-Nazi propagandists.
I look forward to you breaking that down in Hellscape. It's really important. Let's move on to why it matters. High five.
Why does it matter? Why does it matter? By High Fidelity.
First story this week: the Pegasus problem. As followers of the show know, NSO Group has their Pegasus spyware software, and that is also tied to Mike Flynn through OSY Technologies and Q Cyber Technologies. NSO Pegasus spyware was the spyware that the Saudi Arabian government used in their operation to assassinate United States journalist Jamal Khashoggi. And now, finally, we're seeing a little bit of activity here where the White House is going to issue an executive order banning the government and restricting how federal agencies can use spyware. Part of this is, the FBI actually achieved a license. They acquired a license to Pegasus spyware, evaluated it, and then said, no, we're not going to use this.
I mean, great. Like, for me, I guess it's great. We're not going to use the same kind of illegal surveillance software that murdered an American citizen, right? And harmed God knows how many people. I mean, that Pegasus shit has gotten so much information that has harmed so many people and governments, including the United States. And yeah, Mike Flynn was got paid a couple $100,000 by OSY in 2016. And frankly, what I want to hear from the government is what they're going to do about all these people making this software, deploying it against American citizens. I don't need to know that the FBI isn't going to fucking use it. I need to know what they're going to do about all these other people using it.
There you go.
That's a very important why it matters.
So, second story is no kidding. Yeah. And it turns out that the committee, chairman of the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, Gary Peters, released an investigative report showing, guess what? DHS and FBI are not adequately addressing domestic terrorism threat. To which our favorite oligarch, Semyon Yanushit, would reply.
Said no shiticus.
Yeah.
Sherlock.
No shit. Yeah, I mean, come on, man. We all know this. The report that came out that showed the people in the FBI has support for the January 6th insurrectionists. Yeah. When your own intelligence agencies are supporting people who attempted to throw a coup, you may have a problem.
Yeah,
that's why it matters.
Yeah, this is a very important story. We all know about the infection within law enforcement and our intelligence agencies, and that is a bit alarming. But it does fall under the no shiticus Sherlock.
It's also,
umbrella.
I mean, also, and again, for God's sake, I don't want to make this Mueller 2.0, but, the FBI is, for some reason, Christopher Wray, totally blind to Russian interference or to actually investigating the terrorists behind this, like Flynn and the others. This guy now has the full capabilities of the Department of Justice, independent of all of those people.
Yeah, right.
Theoretically.
Right.
Which is why I wrote a letter he will never see to Jack Smith.
He might.
Saying, bro, listen, it's on you.
It is.
Well, I believe I said this. I believe I said this on our live stream, is that they need to figure it the fuck out.
Yeah.
Somebody does.
Well, you know what?
I mean,
we have. Great. You know what's great?
Anyway.
You know what's great? We have a show. This is episode 50, and you can look at all our archives, and you can see that we're on point.
Final story.
This is my favorite, actually.
Is the Supreme Court leaking? Depends. Justice Alito, denies leaking the Hobby Lobby decision back in 2014. Yeah, and when the accusations came out about the Dobbs case, he said, "How dare anyone question the integrity of the court?" Well,
No, he
guess
was
what?
right on that and very public about it and super turned up about it, right?
Yeah.
Who did it benefit? Who was the one person in the world that it most benefited? Samuel fucking Alito, right? Because what that leak did was deflate the reaction to it, because everybody was like, "What the fuck was that?"
Yeah.
And it gave a month for it to become normalized.
Yeah.
Just like the Mueller report, by the way, where there was that period of time where everybody thought it said something different, right? You give the reaction time to deflate, and it gave Alito the ability to go out there and pontificate about how awful it was that somebody leaked. So I cannot say with certainty, but Justice Alito leaked both the Hobby Lobby and the Dobbs case, in my personal opinion.
Well, one of the things I've learned over my life is, in general, the best indicator of future behavior is prior behavior. And so if this was prior behavior, just saying.
Yeah.
Also, I think the part that really kind of gets buried here, the important part, and really why it matters, is the amount of evangelical Christian influence
Yes.
that has infiltrated the circles around our Supreme Court.
Right.
Things like the Federalist Society and the CNP and the evangelicals and all of that. There's a reason we're supposed to be based on separation of church and state, and maybe we need a separation of church and Supreme Court.
I mean, we're talking about the Supreme Court, and what is so infuriating to me is that we have justices who were historic, who did things that made our country better, and that he gets to be, in those halls wearing that robe is just a sign for me of just how much the GOP is not a political party, but a theocratic fascist cult. We had some great human beings wearing those robes, and Justice Alito, I'm sorry, he's not worthy. He's not fit for purpose.
What about I like beer? I like beer. We got that fucking guy on there. We got a cult member in the people,
a literal cult member.
Yeah.
Literal cult member who literally in her brain since she was a baby has been told that 5 old white men in her cult are the people that she answers to. Yeah. Not anybody else, not the fucking rule of law, not the Constitution, not any of that.
Yeah.
And guess what? It's a
not
right misogynistic,
not fit for purpose. Not fit for purpose.
Yes.
We need to flood the court or do term limits.
Not fit for purpose. It's the fucking terrorists. They are cultural terrorists.
Well, I would say that cultural terrorists are not fit for purpose when it comes to people.
Well, I agree. Actually, no, I'm just saying it's very understated.
Yeah. Yes. No, you're right. Cultural terrorist is amazing.
Well, dry and understated is our thing here.
So. Yes, that's right.
When we're not
especially
using
you,
a blunt.
When we're not hitting you in the head with a sledgehammer of knowledge.
Yes. We walk the line between subtle and classy and blunt instruments. So, stick with us, kids.
Jim Stewartson's Hellscape. Oh, fuck.
Hey, everybody. So I was trying to figure out what to do for Hellscape today. There's so many different things going on that are pointing in a scary direction. But this morning there was yet another example of stochastic violence against a targeted group. this time in Colorado Springs. The LGBTQ plus community has been targeted by the right wing for a very long time, right? And for decades, there was mass violence, and finally, they've started to get equality, and that is something that the right wing cannot abide. But it also gives them a scapegoat, which, as we've discussed many times, is what's required to generate incitement, right? As we were discussing before, to generate hate against people. And what that does is creates an environment where there is so much hate that on the edges of the hate, you get people who are willing to take action in the real world. And one of them, a 22-year-old white guy with an AR-15, did it last night in a nightclub in Colorado Springs called Club Q. And yes, everyone has been warning about this. The Pulse nightclub was, if that wasn't a sign, what is a sign is all of the open. It wasn't that long ago that being transphobic in public was something that you couldn't do, that was really frowned on. And now it is just blatant, wide open. Lauren Boebert is the most prominent politician in Colorado who constantly says derogatory, hateful things about the gay community and the trans community and the queer community. Now, all of it, at least the last 6 years of this organized uprising of hate and propaganda, much of which is aimed at this community, comes from Mike Flynn, comes from this hate machine that's been built up for years and years. I've been personally the target of homophobic slurs by Mike Flynn's brother Joe.
Yeah.
They're open about it. When monkeypox suddenly came out of nowhere from a gay pride parade, it was used for months as a vector for hate. Forgetting about the virus. The virus just brought hate along with it. And David DePape, the guy who tried to murder Nancy Pelosi, who smashed her husband's skull with a fucking hammer. He was a nudist out on the streets, like hugging everybody in the world, and he was turned by this hate machine into a vicious transphobe. Mm-hmm. And guess what just happened on Twitter? Elmo, everybody he brought back, with the exception of my old Twitter pal, Kathy Griffin, who he canceled because he's a terrified misogynist, all of them were transphobes. Jordan Peterson, who David DePape was a huge fan of. Babylon Bee, which was just transphobic garbage. And this guy, Andrew Tate, who is just beyond embarrassing in terms of his just blatant bigotry, misogyny, hate, transphobia, all of it. And these people are now allowed back into the town square along with the king of hate, Donald Trump, who, by the way, led the actual removal of rights from trans people in the military, if you recall. I wasn't propaganda. That was something he did. I won't get into the Manhattan Institute in detail here, but this bigotry is baked in, has been for a long time. The Manhattan Institute is a racist think tank in New York City that pretends to be centrist and libertarian, but in fact is one of the worst propaganda operations in American history. They generated, along with the CRT hysteria, the groomers, Disney panic about LGBTQ plus people in Florida. It's all the same people doing the same thing in the open. So, look, I'm going to end it here. We need to recognize as a country that our citizens are under attack for who they are. The famous poem about, the Nazis coming for them, and then they came for them, and then they came for them before they came for you. There's a reason that's so well known. It's because it's real. And the only thing between them and you are the people in the middle that we need to protect together. Our friends, our loved ones, us, and the LGBTQ plus community, we need to stand with them. We need to stand up for them. And we need to put pressure on the administration and the justice system to shut this hate machine down. If we don't, it will get worse and worse and worse. Arrest Mike Flynn.
I'm currently at the demining site on the way to Kherson. Behind me you see sappers who are currently working, hence the sound. This is the sound of the device used to find mines. As you can see, it's all done manually, and the Deputy Minister of Interior Affairs, Mary Kapan, just told us that Ukraine currently is the most mined country in the world.
Zarina, what was happening in that moment when you were taking that video? Because I was actually terrified watching it.
Well, first of all, hello to everyone. Hello, Jim. Hello, High Five.
Hi.
Hello, Heidi. And thank you so much for having me back. And I really want to thank you guys in your audience for paying attention and for not giving up on Ukraine, because I was thinking that I wanted to start with that gratitude. Thanksgiving is coming. I'm thankful for everyone who's watching and who's not tired of the same thing going on and on, because it is going on and it is horrible. And every day is more horrible than the previous one. And it's easy to get tired or to get used to it, especially when you're far away. And I understand that. I'm not judging anyone. But those who have in them this greatness of heart to stand by and to be compassionate, they have a special place in my heart for that. So thank you very much for everyone who's watching. And that would take me to this whole unbelievable journey that I made with the most lucky journalists, war journalists in the world, who got to travel to newly liberated Kherson, the city in the south, which became a symbol of Russian invasion, because that was the only major regional city that Russia has managed to seize. And within the first few hours and days of the war. So Kherson has been occupied by the Russian troops for 8 months. And during that time, a lot of horrible things happened to the population. And also a lot of horrible things happened outside of Ukraine, namely in the Kremlin, where Putin has signed a decree announcing that Kherson, along with Zaporizhia and Donbass and Luhansk, are now the territories of the Russian Federation. So that was intense. That was a very big deal for Russia and obviously for Ukraine. And few weeks after this big show in the Kremlin with singing songs and screaming, the Ukrainian army, in a very smart maneuver, basically destroying the logistics of the Russian troops, made them leave. And I want to emphasize that there was no big battle. Currently, there are fierce fighting battles going in Donbass, which is the east of Ukraine, Donetsk and Luhansk. But Kherson, there were battles as the Ukrainian soldiers were approaching, but there was not one battle of Kherson. They just left. And it was a very shameful move.
Wow.
And of course, when they have to do something like this, they, meaning the Russian authorities, the Kremlin, Putin, they have to do something to take revenge in some other way. And we're talking about mafia. So one way or another, they need to get even. It's their macho thing. And the way that are available to them are something like mining. So what they do in all liberated territories, a lot of mines are being found, and they mine literally everything, Heidi. They mine corpses of their soldiers.
Oh, God.
They mine children's toys. They insert mines in the places they were staying. Like in Hostomel, which is Kiev Oblast, I was staying with a lovely couple who in 2014 escaped Donetsk. And then they had to move out of their house in Hostomel. But when they came back after the Russians left, they had to call the mining services, the sappers, because they found, and forgive me, I hope no children are watching at this hour, there was a dildo inserted in the side of their bed, and most likely it was a mine, so they had to call for the service to demine it. So they do these sneaky things, a very FSB, KGB type of things, because the KGB is known for sneaking into people's houses, and it's been written about, ad nauseum, and leaving their little notes and little nasty tokens of them being there. So that kind of hello, we left, we had to
wow.
We are going to really spoil your life, so don't be too happy. We are going to kill you and kill your children by like mining the toys and stuff like that. So what you see there are well, they're actually not miners, they're sappers. a lot of them are specially trained. Actually, quite a few were sent to England and to other European countries to get some additional training. Every country sharing what they can, so they got that. But due to the nature of the mining, they have to do it by hand. And we're talking about vast territories. And what you see in that video, you see the miners who one by one, inch by inch, with the little thing, like how you see people in the beach somewhere in Florida,
Yeah.
like looking for metal. That's how they're looking for the mines. And later on in that video, you see the mines that are lined up right there by the exploded bridge. So what happened to us, we had to be on the press tour because of this mining, severe mining, and because of the condition of the road. No journalists and no civilians are allowed to proceed to Kherson on their own yet. It's dangerous.
Right.
But they finally managed to put two press tours together, and it was incredibly hard to get a seat on this tours, because every single journalist wanted to be on that tour. People were like, one picture I sent you, Heidi, is like
Yes, we have it.
walls, and I had to. I was on the list, but you still had to sneak in and like hang on your seat because they tried to kick you out. And you see people from the Washington Post and the New York Times, CNN, Economist, and there's like, it's all equalizer. These little buses, Soviet-made buses, everybody's hanging off the ceiling, and whoever can get there first gets it. So me with the Byline Time and Euromaidan, I run the fastest. And of course, everyone is wearing the bulletproof vests and the helmets, and some unlucky crews have a lot of equipment too. So that makes this trips harder. So on one of the first trip, we had to unload over the buses because two of them were broken. And at the same time, the shelling was going on because the Russians figured out that Zelensky was visiting and they were shelling the area. And the second time on Wednesday, the bus couldn't pass on the road because the road is broken. It was exploded. So we had to get off the bus and march on the road. But of course, the press officers are Ukrainian, and they shout at the crowd in Ukrainian, "Шановні журналісти," and then don't walk on the grass. And "Шановні журналісти" do not understand whatever the hell they're saying. So they like go for, we just got so lucky that nobody got exploded. So like myself and some other, Ukrainian journalists who speak English, like, guys, you can't walk there. It was
It's amazing. And you got a picture of Zelensky. Congratulations. That was amazing. I was so happy for you.
Well, I mean, that's probably not the National Geographic quality picture. I was very close, and most of it was like elbow fight. I was taking videos. I have a video. But what happened there, because Kherson doesn't have power, it doesn't have water, it doesn't have heat, it doesn't have food, it doesn't have internet, it doesn't have anything. So as a result, it was like a makeshift press conference where some microphones, like I don't know, CNN and BBC probably were able to put their big mics right next to Zelensky, right under his nose. So they got the sound. But folks like myself, whoever, I was very close, but he can't speak very loud anymore. His voice is kind of low at this point. He has to speak a lot. It was very quiet, and you'll see. I just want, for those who are interested, this is really, really unique footage. That's a one of a lifetime. The city that was just liberated, with the president of the country attending what the other country, Odessa, considers their territory. Right. So within like 20 minutes, they start shelling the city. And so I am there taking interviews with all these people. I'm just about to share the video that we put together. I have people who work with, my colleagues, and EBT News. So this is quite unique. We worked on it the whole week, and this week was challenging to work on anything because most of the time we do not have, like in Kherson, most of Ukraine doesn't have light, internet, heat, water, you name it. So it was
Amazing.
really, I would put this video out much faster, but when none of you has internet,
Yeah.
it's not that easy.
Let's talk about that for a second, Zarina, because it has been hard times in the last few days. You're doing incredibly brave work. Among the other things that Kherson does not have is Russians. And I just had to say that. I just needed to say that. But can you describe what it's like to be doing this type of work without heat and some of the basic things that you need and kind of living in that darkness for days?
Well, it's frustrating because you have all this amazing footage from 2 trips, right? Like I have the mines, I have the interviews with the deputy minister of internal affairs, I have Zelensky's video, I have the footage of the torture rooms in the prison
Yeah.
and the interviews with
Jesus
people who were
Christ.
tortured. I want to bring it to the world, but my whole place, my whole block, and the whole street and the whole city is dark.
Yeah.
And fortunately, mobile internet works somewhat, so you can text, your loved ones and tell them that you are actually okay, because Russians keep bombing. The day after that whole thing happened, after Zelensky spoke in Kherson, and after we came back, they got their revenge in another way other than mines. They've staged the most, I don't even have words for it, the largest airstrike on the critical infrastructure.
Oh my
And
God.
they had 100 missiles flying. It's like one of these days. Sometimes when they very angry, right after Putin's birthday and after the bridge, the Crimean bridge was exploded. So he went ballistic, literally, pun intended.
Yeah.
And
Right.
there was attacks in Kiev and Odessa and everywhere. So that was one of those. And they did hit our air defense. And I want to speak about air defense because that's where ultimately we are going. This is what can be done. But our defense in Odessa is spectacular. These guys are magicians. That's unbelievable, knock on wood, so we don't jinx, but they stop pretty much everything. Drones, missiles, we here feel pretty privileged. We hear air raid, everybody just walking around because we know that the guys there are watching day and night. But this time they managed to hit a critical object. And so, boom, went Odessa. Well, I mean, they still have a backup. That's a very advanced system. Like sometimes in Europe, you walk around and you can't get internet. And here you're being bombed. There's no electricity. There's war. And I still can text my family telling them that I'm okay. So,
Wow.
it's pretty impressive. So what I found out for myself, to answer your question, I found other kinds of challenges because I discovered this amazing sushi place / French bakery where they had everything. So their building was on the block. I don't know, they got lucky. Somehow they didn't get switched off. Just a miracle. They don't know why.
Uh-huh.
Probably are getting switched off now that I have. So I just went there and I said, look, I'm a journalist. Can I sit and work there? So my challenge was not to eat the amazing French made that was staring at me. It was hard to focus on my work. I'll send you the pictures. They are unbelievable.
Oh, I've seen them. I saw them. You posted them. It was brilliant.
Yeah. So I gave up and I went for this pink cake, which was like blew my mind. And they are baking them there. I'm going to do another little piece on how Odessa survives in the dark because people are very creative, innovative. It's similar to America, where people they have the spirit, entrepreneurial spirit. It's practically impossible to break it. So they will be baking their cakes and their food is here. So the food industry is amazing. Like everything is delicious.
I also saw that beautiful Dancing in the Dark video clip. All the work that you're doing. I think what makes you so unique and why I love your reporting so much is you have the heart of an artist. So as you tell these war stories, it still comes out with that with all those cultural touchstones and just all the art that's in you. And before we do anything else, I need you to tell Americans about the Potemkin protest in Moldova. I think it's so important that we are not naive about how Russia stages protests to make it look organic, like it's by the people, when in fact they're bussing people in, paying them $10 a day and bussing them out. And you were on the spot for one of these protests. Can you give a few words about that, please?
Yes, I will. And I want to make a good transition too, because before we go into Moldova and the whole, it's connected, because what the Russians are trying to do, they're trying to use energy industry for blackmail. They're trying to hook off any country they can. And that includes Europe, by the way. And if they could, they would do it to America as well, of their gas and of electricity. And so in winter comes, there's even a word for it, Holodomor, because there was a Holodomor, like a hunger, death by hunger, which Stalin did in the 30s.
Oh,
and then it's Golod is hunger, and Holod is cold. So they are doing Holodomor, like a death by cold. Because when it's cold, believe me, I know it. I was freezing out here, but so they do it in Ukraine by arranging this massive airstrikes using missiles. Now they're going to get more from Iran. So what we need here to protect Ukrainian people, to protect their energy system, is the solid air defense. We need to close the sky. And today I saw some good sign, too early to say anything, but there's some negotiations going on already about the joint protection for the sky. But Heidi, you probably know, I kept speaking about it from day one. This is what needs to be done, because if we close the sky over Ukraine, guess what? Russia cannot proceed anymore. They are useless on the ground. They've been kicked out. Just close the goddamn.
yes.
Just close the fucking sky. Close it, and this is it. That will be the end of it. And it doesn't take a military analytic or political analyst or a critic. It just, like anyone, I don't know, my dog, if I had one, would be able to tell you, close the sky, and this is it. They can't damage the electricity. They can't damage the gas resources, which they were doing this week, and they're out, and everybody's happy. So what's happening in Moldova, and forgive me for getting overheated, again, pun intended.
Please
do not. Oh,
let
please
go.
Do.
Please do. This is how we're going to get people's attention.
It's nice to emote too, after sitting for a week in the dark apartment here with the candles. I'll show you my candles after that. I brought from Belgium the whole suitcase of candles and LED lamps and stuff like that. So what they do in Moldova, which is a country, very small country, the whole population is about 4 million, but most of the country, or at least I shouldn't say most, half of the country lives abroad because it's the poorest country in Europe. So currently there is about 3 million population we're talking about. Nevertheless, there's democracy there. Actually, they're pretty high on the democratic ratings, and it's a former country republic of the Soviet Union, another unfortunate one. So they became independent, they meaning Moldovans, about 30 years ago in 1991. And very, very briefly, there was a breakaway separatist state of Transnistria. And that was initially and eventually and still grabbed by Russia. It's very pro-Russian. It's tiny, but it's in the middle of Moldova. And the significance of that is that they have the biggest plant that produced, I should say, 70% of all electricity that is needed for Moldovan needs. So what the Russians did, what Gazprom did, or read the Kremlin did, they broke the contract, the existing contract. They didn't respect it. And they stopped delivering gas, which is used to produce electricity in Transnistria, which, boom, turned off Moldova of the electricity grid. So Moldova went dark because the rest of it was delivered by whom? Guess, Ukraine. So
Yeah.
at the time, Ukraine was being bombed, and Ukraine has a major blackout because our energy system here is 50% damaged. So Ukraine could not, of course, anymore supply electricity to Moldova. So Moldova had to turn to Romania, which is another country, and it's a state of the European Union. But the difference is that Moldova has to buy the electricity from Romania, which is also not the richest country in the world, with the international market prices, and it cannot afford it. So its budget is blown, and
Wow.
there were blackouts, and so people were not happy with it. Of course, you know who would be, and also their prices, their bills, regular people, residents, bills for their heating and for the electricity went up like 5 times, and their salaries are really low. So to cut the long story short, immediately, of course, the Kremlin jumped on that, and they already had the existing Kremlin agents network, like in every country. We have that
Yes.
in America, we have it in England, we have it in Europe, you name it. They had it in Ukraine. So they were activated. And those oligarchs that were ruling the country, strangely, along with the communists, don't ask me, it will take us on the whole crazy journey, but there are a couple of oligarchs who are very powerful there. And especially the one who is now running the protests, he's connected with Russia. His wife is a popular Russian pop singer, horrible one, which was decorated by Putin personally. I mean, I sing better than this singer, but but they're closely connected. I mean, like your family, imagine your family members being personally decorated by Putin, right? Just to give you an idea of how close it is. And there's FSB everywhere infiltrating the country. So there's a lot of fear there in Moldova. Like you will see if you watch my Kherson video, how everybody is so open and people are not afraid to talk, to give their names, because in Ukraine, there's no fear. They are not afraid. They're outspoken. Moldova, like Russia, is run by fear. And you will see if you watch that video on EBT News, I asked, I didn't include all the interviews that didn't happen, but I asked like 50 people, please talk to me. And nobody would talk. They will all turn away. And when I say everyone, 90% of them were this really old babushkas in this village headscarves, who looked like they had no idea what is going on.
Right.
And I didn't know where they came from. I mean, I don't know. I didn't spend that much time in Moldova. It's not the country that I researched at that time in depth. So I just followed them when at 4:30, they all turned around and rushed, literally like ran with their walking sticks and stuff. They like were running. It was like some dark comedy show. Not politically correct, mind you, either. And so I was running after them, and like one babushka was trying to hit me at some point because she said like, away with America, away with England, and away with you. So but I didn't go away. I followed them, and in 15 minutes I counted about 50 buses, and like hundreds, maybe. I couldn't count. I can't tell you how many minibuses. And so all this river of babushkas, the human babushka river, like streamed into the little lanes, and they were hopping on the bus, and the buses were taking them out. So after that, of course, I ran home. I stayed up till 3 and edited this video, threw it up.
Yeah, it's great.
On the our new channel that myself and a Scottish journalist and my Ukrainian colleagues just recently started, and we have really unique material there. So please check it out, EBT News. We have big plans, but
Yes.
we have
Zarina, why I wanted you to tell that story is we had just had David Pepper on that week, who had written the book Laboratories of Autocracy, about how the states in America are where the autocratic capture is happening, and everybody's been asleep on that. We had just talked about the Trump Ohio rally, and Hi-Fi had mentioned, since David Pepper's from Ohio, a call that's very common in Ohio. You say OH and they're supposed to say IO. All the people who were at this particular Trump rally did not know the call. So clearly they had been bussed in from somewhere to make it look like they were there to support him. And it just made me think how much of what we see is theater craft, how much of what we are seeing is a Kremlin induced reality bending, non-existent narrative to try to shape people's thoughts. And that to me was an example of that.
It's a perfect example, Heidi. And in Russia, this has been a practice for many years. In fact, when I was a child growing up in the Soviet Union, they bussed us places, only they didn't pay us. We were forced. We were forced to march for the November 7th. And I was there, ironically, on November 7th. So it was such a flashback, and if you didn't march, you would be kicked out of school, you would lose your job.
Wow.
So there was some internal process. You would get drunk as a teenager or as an adult.
Why this is so damn important is that we have a quote unquote political party, no longer a political party, that's aligned itself with the Kremlin, aligned itself with Putin, which means its followers are aligned with this. Do you really want to align yourself with a group of people that actually mine corpses? Is that what you want to align yourself with? Because that is what's coming. And that is why it's so important to hear these stories.
Well, I am afraid that we're preaching to the choir, because I don't think any of their followers would be watching our shows. And if they would, there would be trolls or some sort of Kremlin agents.
We have those.
Except Zarina, we just had midterms where we saw that there seems to be signs that some people are coming out of sort of this psychoses. And so we are going to try to reach them no matter what. Jim, what did you want to say?
I just wanted to know how the sort of right-wing pushback and propaganda to Ukraine, to aid to Ukraine, etc. It's the kind of fervor and propaganda against Zelensky. He's a Nazi and he does cocaine and all this ridiculous, propaganda is on the rise here. And I wanted to know how much that is absorbed in Ukraine and how much of a concern it is.
It's not a concern. I mean, it's the Kremlin narratives that they've been promoting on the Russian state television and mass media from the day one of the invasion and before then.
Sure.
And I see it spread. And in fact, one of the newspapers that I write for is Fresno Community Alliance in California, and it's very left. And I've had a major issue there because I was actually kind of ridiculously, well, I wouldn't want to say attacked, but I had to write an explanatory note how I'm not a Nazi, how I'm not a part of the far-right machine, and what else, and how Ukrainians are not Nazis. And I have to say that my editor was right on top. He was fine. But the readers already have been disinformed and misinformed. These are two different things so badly that they give back the narratives that I see coming from the Kremlin television. And they said, like, instead of listening to Zarina Zabrisky and her neo-Nazi, narrative, you should watch Aaron Mate and there were like number. There was the whole list of people
Matt
compromised.
Taibbi, Glenn Greenwald. I could see it already.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Fuck Aaron today. I'm sorry.
I went one by one, Matt Taibbi, and so I went one by one, showing them on the Russian television their connection with the Russians and so
Exactly.
forth. And I don't know, there was no answer, but I don't believe I have convinced anybody otherwise, because I know the mechanism of brainwashing. Once
Right.
somebody is brainwashed, it's extremely hard to unbrainwash, and they would not
Yes.
be listening. There's special mechanisms. That's a problem with the brainwashing, and it really is difficult and hard, because this is exactly what is happening with Twitter now. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yes,
you
course.
it's
you betcha.
so many people asking what is happening with Twitter. How is it possible? Why is he eager to lose 44 billion, right? But the problem is that it's the tool. It's a major tool in the information warfare.
Yes.
And
It's cheap. I mean, they're able to affect basically the entire American population and almost, a lot of the global population all at the same time. And so letting all of these people in, and Elon Musk tried to give Crimea to Putin, right? Overtly on Twitter, right?
Mhm.
Said, hey, why don't we just cut off this thing? You don't need Crimea, do you? Right? And now the guy owns Twitter, let Trump back on, let a whole bunch of propagandists, and it's going to get far worse. How is that affecting people in Ukraine? That's what I'm wondering. Are people there like, what is going on in America, and are you concerned about the flow of aid that needs to keep coming?
I mean, I do, and I'm concerned, but people here don't. They have enough to deal with. We have
Right.
power.
I figured, yeah.
Some have no homes, and they just, I lived in many countries, so I know that the nuanced knowledge of another place is something that is only available to academics or people who have some time on their hands. And your average resident of an average city in any country doesn't know in detail what's happening in another country. That's why I'm saying that you guys, well, you are the bloggers and journalists, but your audience is unique that way and special, because there is this depth of knowledge and nuance of knowledge. And of course here you would find Ukrainians who also know a lot about politics in other countries, but right now it's not their primary concern. Everything as relevant to Ukraine, I would say. So what happened with Elon Musk is actually a good illustration, because when he was given Starlinks to Ukrainian army, that was God sent, and he was like, a saint. And I personally spoke to one of the rescue officers in Zaporizhia at the refugee center, who showed me Starlink very proudly, and he said, Elon Musk, he's our God, he saved us. But guess what? He wasn't paying for it. And at some point, at a very decisive point during an counter-offensive, they failed.
Yes, we're aware of that.
Units have failed. And I mean, that makes you think. So it happened in Odessa here, and it's typical Odessa. At the time when he was given Starlinks, you would see Elon Musk's billboards, his face on billboards. And the moment he said that you don't need Crimea, why don't you? They started to take his down. So
I was glad to see that there was that quick response, because we were talking about that on the show. I have one more question that I'm sure Hi-Fi might have something to say, because we only have a couple more minutes. Dugin called for Putin's execution, and Prigozhin has been running around like he's the big alpha dog right now. What do you make of that as somebody who understands, the Kremlin machinery?
Well, and other people might have other answers. I would expect them to have other answers. My answer after, lifetime of watching involuntarily the Kremlin game and 12 years of voluntarily, researching what they do. My answer is that it's like commenting on a mental institution, like a mental ward. Like, why did this one call himself Napoleon, and why did this one, has a feces obsession? I don't know, and I don't want to know, and it's irrelevant. This whole place is a lunatic,
Asylum.
asylum, and nobody should be really. I mean, on the one hand, they should be listened to because they're pretty good at saying what they will do. They either gaslight and say, Ukraine did such and such, meaning they are about to do it, or they just say that they will do it, and then they do it. So that should be taken seriously, and that should be confronted and stopped. But other than that, some listening to their delirium, no, thank you very much. I have enough issues here. So.
I love you, Zarina. I love you. I love you so much. High five. What do you got?
All right, I have to do this because this is who I am. We talk about the torture chambers in Kherson. We talk about what is it now, 700 bodies that have been recovered. We know that there's approximately 10 to 11,000 missing children. When will the rest of the world wake up and designate Russia a state sponsor of terrorism? I mean, they are terrorists. This is what they're doing.
Exactly. I mean, exactly. And I'm an eyewitness, and I'm recording all of this. I have footage of the mass graves exhumation in Izium. Did we speak to you guys after that?
I don't know.
No, so very briefly, I was in Kharkov, and I was in the torture chambers there as well, in Kazachye Lopan, in other places. I have videos of that. I've written about it for Byline, and it is not some sort of fluke. It is not some sort of individual sadistic tendencies of certain soldiers. It is an order that is coming from the Kremlin, and the evidence is right there. And I'm working on a big investigation on that right now, because there are patterns. If you take Bucha, and so Bucha is here, and if you take Kharkov is here, and if you take Kherson is here, like down below, it's very far away from each other, but you have exact same thing. People would be detained, grabbed late at night with a bag over their heads. They would be taken always to the basement. In the basement, they almost always build cages, and I have photographs of the cages and videos inside of a cage myself. I mean, I've seen what they do. They place people next to the torture rooms, where the psychological torture, one of the worst I hear, is listening to the screams of the victims for days on end, several days, and then the victims are going to be taken to be tortured, and then they torture them in exact same way, with the same electric shock, the same procedure. They do it in the same way. It just can't be a coincidence. They beat them in the same way. There's certain tortures that I'm not going to go into details right now. It's unnecessary, and I'm not here for sensationalism.
Of course not.
There are certain ways, and it's being detailed, and it's being taken down and recorded. And I'm compiling all this. And after speaking, I spoke already to maybe personally interviewed maybe 10 or 15 people who were tortured by the Russian military in Ukraine. And I can tell you personally that it is a pattern, and it is an order. And because of that, Russia, as you said, high five, should be recognized as a terrorist state, because that's the policy of terror. And the reason for it is the fear. Because as I mentioned somewhere along our conversation, people in Russia and Moldova are living with fear.
Yeah.
Their whole life is guided by fear. They're afraid to speak, they're afraid to move, they're afraid to do certain things. Not Ukraine. Ukrainians are not afraid. That's why you've seen from the beginning of the war them jumping on tanks, them speaking outwardly. You ask me if they are concerned about Zelensky. Not in a way that the Kremlin would. They support Zelensky wholeheartedly right now, but they have such rebellion in their hearts that anybody whom they elect immediately becomes, we don't know about him. And they speak about it. The whole system of governance is from the bottom. It's very democratic. It's different.
Right.
So the Russian goal is to suppress it and to make Ukrainians be, scared, to be guided by fear. And so far they're failing. But, there were several people in Kherson right now who said, oh, you would find a way to lie to them or to somehow deceive them, but there will be a moment where the pain is so severe, or when they threaten your family, when they're about to kill your family, when you will agree to do what they make you to do. And nobody can judge it because none of us has been tortured. It's not something that we can say, oh, that person. So and that's what they do. That's what I'm researching right now. I'm about to go back to Kherson Oblast, to the villages, to look for more of the torture rooms, to record it, and to bring that, as some other journalists are doing and the human rights defenders are doing, into the common, like database of the war crimes of the Russian Federation.
Thank you so much for the work that you do, Zarina. It is so important. It is just so incredibly important. And thank you for that question, Hi-Fi. If it wasn't for Petro, they would have been declared a terrorist state a long time ago. And and to the Ukrainian people, we are here to support you.
Thank you.
And everybody here who's simping or standing or in any way backing these monsters who are doing this to our fellow human beings, you're in a cult. You're in a death cult.
Yeah.
Listen to Zarina. Wake the fuck up. Thank you, Zarina. We're so grateful for you.
Thank you for amplifying my voice, because I can see how the narrative is already being stolen. And the work that they've been doing in Moldova, they are doing in America as well.
Yes, that's right.
You need to be diligent. You need to be, and I'm speaking to the audience. If you're listening to me, thank you very much. Please check your information. You are right now being a target of the Kremlin disinformation, of the engineered propaganda. I know that because they taught me how to do it in university. So I see what they're doing. And my duty now is to help bring it down together with Heidi and Jim and Hi-Fi.
That's right.
Brave warriors who are doing it. And I'm damn serious about it, because if America falls, the whole world is gone.
Thank you, Zarina. Love you so much.
Thank you. So, I mean, I would like to depart with two very short things. Like, any way you can, demand for closing the sky. If you can make a trend, close the sky, no-fly zone, let's start the trend. Like, anything would work now. They need to do it. Better late than never, to save lives, to save millions and millions of lives.
Okay.
That's number one. And number two, please watch. We work very hard in the dark with no electricity, trying to bring the news together. EBT News. And you can also read my articles. I do daily reviews on Euromaidan Press, a bunch of really brave Ukrainians who are all over Ukraine. Also, no internet, no light, working away day and night, no weekends. Today's Sunday. And Byline Times, also our terrific British newspaper. Heidi is also a contributor. Terrific stuff from the British angle. And listen to these guys. They're the best.
Thank you. Thank you for that beautiful way to end this.
Thanks, Zarina.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate you.
Slava Ukraini.
Everything. That was everything. So, in honor of strong women, in honor of our 50th episode, in honor of freedom continuing everywhere, let's give Nancy Pelosi the final word.
Democracy is majestic, but it is fragile. Many of us here have witnessed its fragility firsthand, tragically, in this chamber. And so democracy must be forever defended from forces that wish it harm. Last week, the American people spoke, and their voices were raised in defense of liberty, of the rule of law, and of democracy itself. With these elections, the people stood in the breach and repelled the assault on democracy. They resoundingly rejected violence and insurrection, and in doing so, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there.